Week 12 is upon us and is now time to get ready to pick that kicker who's going to help you win your week. Let's get into our kickers, streamers, and rankings right now. What's going on, everybody? My name is Michael Hopp. Feel free to follow me on X at the FF Realist. And most importantly, these are the kickers, streamers, rankings for week 12 of the fantasy football season. I will just tell you guys, I have been getting asked. Yes, there will be a playoff video coming out probably at the end of this week, as long as my throat will allow. I've been a little under the weather. So, yeah, look to get that out soon to help you guys start to carve your path towards a fantasy football championship. But before we get into our streamers and rankings, we'll do our recaps really quick. The recaps from the streamers last week, not as great as we would like, but you know what? We didn't really get the opportunity. Two out of our three kickers that were picked as streamers didn't even get a single field goal attempt on the week. Hard to manage to score points when you're not getting any attempts. Just didn't play out that way, unfortunately. We did get Evan McPherson, who was one of our streamers, had 6 points, but honestly, I was expecting a little bit more given the fact that that was supposed to be such a high-scoring affair between the Bengals and the Steelers. Did not pan out that way. Despite that, though, we did have some good rankings. We had Cairo Santos and Eddie Pinheiro, who had been, Cairo had one bad week since coming back from injury. Eddie Pinheiro had a couple of bad weeks. Some people were worrying. I kept them in there towards the top of the rankings, and they both produced. Santos with 15 points, Pinheiro with 11. So we'd love to see that. We're going to look to build on that, and we're going to look to build on these streamers in a moment. I do like to, as always, tell you or ask you, whatever the hell, why do kickers matter? Really, it's a quick little lesson to give some perspective to those in the room who want to scoff at kickers, say that they don't matter, say that they're not important. Um, Last week in half point formats, Will Lutz of the Denver Broncos wound up scoring 18 points. He was only rostered in 31% of leagues. So 18 points from a player rostered in 31% of leagues. And that was more in half point formats than Jahmyr Gibbs and more than Jameson Williams. So there you go. So that's why kickers matter. If they matter towards your final score, they matter. So pay attention to them. That's why I'm doing the work for you. But with that being said, we are going to get into our streamers now. Again, these are kickers that are rostered in 35% or less of leagues. This is as per Sleeper. So let's get into this right now. The first kicker that we're going to mention, and listen, it might sound repetitive, but hey, until you guys roster him, I'm going to keep putting him in there. It's Cairo Santos of the Chicago Bears. He is right at the bar this week, rostered in 35% of leagues. So this will probably be the last week for a while that we're going to get to talk about him as a streamer. But before we delve into Santos here, I do want to just mention, because this is a game in Chicago. This is, mid-November. People are going to worry about the weather. Weather looks good for this weekend in Chicago. It doesn't even look like a lot of wind, so that's good. So we can not worry about that. Now, as previously mentioned, Santos did have a bounce back week. Turned out to be a great play in week 11. Put up 15 points. It's double-digit points has been a trend for Santos, believe it or not. Since returning from his injury, Santos has had 10 or more points in 3 out of the last 4 games. Then we have the Steelers, who are one of 5 teams to allow over 100 points to the opposing kickers this year in fantasy. That would include the last 3 weeks in which they have allowed an average of 11.3 points on a per game basis. Lastly, I'll close out with this with Santos. I'm going to keep mentioning it because opportunity matters. We talk about that with wide receivers, with running backs, with tight ends, right? We want the guys that get the targets. We want the guys that have the opportunities. The Chicago Bears are tied for first with 2.9 field goal attempts on a per game basis this year. So you can't beat that. If you know, you know. But yeah, so I like Cairo Santos. Again, probably the last week we're going to get to talk about him as being a streamer, but if he's available in your league, fire him up. Next on our list here, we're going to go with a player that I feel like we don't mention enough, or I should say I don't, since it's me. I don't talk about him enough here. It's Andy Borregales of the New England Patriots, only rostered in 5% of leagues. Listen, over the last 5 weeks, the Patriots kicker has scored the 9th most points in fantasy, and Borregales could be in store for his 3rd game with 10 or more points this year. That's because he's going up against the Cincinnati Bengals here, and the Bengals right now are towards the middle of the league in points allowed. Now, while that is the case, you wouldn't know it from the last few weeks. They have had 6 games with 10 or more points allowed this year. 4 of those have come in the last 5 weeks. So the points have been coming in bunches as of late. So it's a ride the hot hand sort of scenario here with Andy Borregales. So I'm going to do that again. If you need him, he's only rostered in 5% of leagues. So Lord knows he's available. In terms of weather, there isn't much to worry about in Cincinnati either. So we'd love to hear that. I do want to fist fight some meteorologists based on last week, but we'll do another show about that. Let's get into our last kicker on the streamers. And by the way, I do want to mention before we get to our last streamer, if you have any questions, comments, anything going on, fire it into the comment section there below. I will absolutely answer you the best I possibly can in hopefully the right amount of time. Also, while you're sending a question, you might as well hit the like button. It helps us out immensely, helps us grow, helps us reach more people. Hopefully we reach everybody except for your league mates. This way you can keep getting ahead on this kicker information. The last kicker we're going to mention here for our streamers, and it's going to be Mr. Daniel Carlson of the Las Vegas Raiders, rostered for 14. What the hell was it just saying? Rostered in 14% of leagues in sleeper formats. In his 3 games before week 11, Carlson had a measly combined 6 points. The bounce back did come on Monday Night Football as Carlson did score 10 points in a losing effort against the Dallas Cowboys. Here's the thing, though. The Browns, to me, present an intriguing matchup. Over their last 3 games, they are tied for allowing the third most field goal attempts with 2.7. Those kicks have been hitting as the Browns have allowed an average of 11 points during that 3-game span. And, we don't even need to worry about whether on this one this game's going to be played in Vegas. But the reason why I'm mentioning where this game will be played is because 3 of his 4 games this year that have been at home, I'm sorry, 3 of his 4 games with 10 points have come when he is at home. So we like the opportunity for Daniel Carlson based on the recent trend with the Browns and the fact that he's playing at home. Now, the one thing I'm going to put out there, spoiler alert, as we get into these top 12 rankings, he is ranked 13th for me. So, and that's got more to do with competition at the position. It's not a death sentence to be down there either. Some people feel like if they're not in my top 12, that must mean I think that they're going to stink in the week. That's not the case at all. I'll also say, because this can always change, don't be surprised if between this recording and the end of the week, when I release my final rankings, if Carlson sneaks into that top 12, back end of top 12, tier 3. So I do like Carlson. Just don't be thrown off when he's not in my top 12. I just wanted to put that out there. But let's do it. That being said, let's talk. We've talked enough about the top 12. Let's actually get into it. Again, leave any questions or comments here. But listen, a lot of you guys always hammer me in the comments. You always say, where is this man? Where is that man? And the number 1 kicker on the week is Mr. Tyler Snoopaloop of the Baltimore Ravens. There you go. Go streaking. You guys are going to go through the quad. We're all going to have a good time. But yeah, Tyler Loop is my number 1 kicker on the week, going up against the Jets. Since the Ravens bye week, outside of 1 game, Loop has been great. We're talking week 80 at 12 points, week 90 at 4 points. Then week 10, he had 13, and then week 11, this past week, he scores 11. So he's been scoring a lot of points lately. We'd love to see those trends. We'd love to ride that momentum. And again, Loop is going to take that momentum up against the goddamn Jets. And yeah, that's another if you know, you know. But the Jets are tied in allowing a league high 109 points to fantasy kickers this season. Along with that, they are also one of just 3 teams that has not had a single week with allowing 5 points or less to an opposing kicker. So we're all about that as well. So yeah, so to me, this is just an interesting matchup here. For those interested, the weather is looking good in Baltimore. I'm taking a sip of my drink because, I've been under the weather. So a little Pedialyte never killed anybody. But yeah, Tyler Loop is the number 1 kicker on the week. Let's get into the next player in our rankings in tier 1. And that's going to be Mr. Jason Myers of the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks will be at the Titans. Myers enters week 12 with the most points at the position. He's also one of 2 kickers with over 100 points in the year. His last 2 weeks have been strong, too. He has scored a combined 29 points. As I said, he's going to be going up against the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are more towards the middle of the pack in terms of points allowed, but since week 7, they haven't allowed fewer than 7 points. So they are still, despite their ranking, they are still giving up points. So I'm not worried from that standpoint. In terms of weather, it looks like it's going to be a gorgeous day in Tennessee, not much wind, and also good to know When the Titans are at home, they are allowing 2.2 field goal attempts as opposed to 1.6 when they are on the road. If you have Myers, listen, he's kind of the biggest name kicker that not enough people talk about. If you have him, he's set it and forget it status for the rest of this season. And let's round out our tier one. Let's go to Mr. Brandon Aubrey. Yes, we had the Stones and not rank Brandon Aubrey number one. Congratulations to us. Aubrey's a third ranked kicker for us. Again, does round out the tier one, despite Aubrey averaging 9.8 points per game this year and being third best at his position. He's only had one double digit game since week 2. So yeah, he's been getting points, but he hasn't been getting enough points to meet the reputation that people have come to know and love about Brandon Aubrey. While the Eagles have allowed just 6 points in the last 2 weeks combined to kickers, prior to that, they were allowing an average of 11 points per game to the position. This will be the second matchup between the Eagles and the Cowboys, of course, division rivals. In the previous matchup to kick off the NFL season, Brandon Aubrey did score 10 points. That was a week in which he had double-digit points. I like that to happen again here. I just like the 1 and 2 guys a little bit more. Let's get into our tier 2 here for our rankings. And Chris Boswell is coming in at number 4. The Steelers will be at the Bears. I mentioned that earlier, so you guys already know the weather's going to be good there. Boswell continues to be one of the constants at the kicking position. He's currently tied for third most points and is averaging 9.6 points per game. He has also been a top 12 kicker in 8 of his 10 games this year, so we love that as well. Since their bye, the Bears have been consistent in points allowed to kickers. In the 6 weeks since their bye, the Bears have allowed 8 or more points 4 times. So 4 out of 6 weeks, they're allowing at least 8 points, so that's good to know. So Chris Boswell again. When we talk about the tier one and the top of tier two, we're talking about consistent kickers. So gotta love it. So we're getting to our next player. Welcome back, Mr. Kyami Fairbairn. People have been desperately waiting for you to return. I like him here at number 5. Again, we'll see how he's going to be in terms of the injury. He is going up against the Buffalo Bills on Thursday Night Football, but you guys know, Fairbairn's averaging 11 points on a per game basis and is still one of the top scoring kickers in the league, despite missing the last 2 games. So we do love Kyami Fairbairn. As long as he's playing, as long as he's healthy, he's going to be one of the top kickers. We do like him rest of the season as well. So welcome back to Kyami. And rounding out tier 2, we already talked about him, so I'm going to timestamp all this. You can go back into the streamer part of this program, and it was Cairo Santos. He is our 6th ranked kicker, so we love him as well. Let's get into tier 3 of our rankings, and number 7 is going to be Cam Little of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, he was one of our streamers that didn't even get a single field goal attempt here. This is what I'm doing, though. I'm following the same model that I followed last week with Cairo Santos. Santos was coming off a bad week. I said, I'm still digging in. I'm still going to go with him in week 11. And he proved me right. Cam Little, I'm doing the same thing. He had a bad week, but he didn't have a field goal attempt. It wasn't like he missed kicks. It wasn't like he was struggling. It wasn't anything dramatic like that. Just didn't get the opportunity. So I'm going to stick with him again this week, going up against the Cardinals. And here's the thing. The Cardinals are one of 3 teams with 6 games of 10 or more points allowed to the position. That would include 29 points allowed over the last 2 weeks. Mind you, in the 2 games before last week's disappointing game, Little had scored 27 points. So he was putting up points before that. He just had a bad week with no opportunity. And he has only had 4 games this year with 5 points or less. So he usually puts out a good week for you. I think that this tier 3 ranking is more than fair, and I think that this graphic is more than fantastic. So there you go. That's our 7th ranked kicker, Cam Little. Our 8th ranked kicker, again, go to the timestamps, go to the streamer part of this part of the show, and Andy Borregales is our kicker there at number 8 as we round out tier 3. And I'll let you guys know if you have any questions or comments, fire it into the chat there. The last kicker we will mention here in tier 3 is going to be Jake Bates of the Detroit Lions. Lions will be going up against the Giants. Jake Bates has only had 5 games with 8 or more points scored, but I like him in this matchup against the Giants. What's encouraging here is that Bates is averaging 2 more points per game at home as opposed to being on the road. So we like that since he's going to be at home, kind of the Daniel Carlson sort of thing there we're going to follow. Even with the Giants allowing a single point to the opposing kicker last week, they're still allowing 8.9 points on a per game basis to the position. So don't look at that 1 point allowed and think, wow, the Giants must be a tough matchup. They are not. Um, Again, Bates isn't the flashiest play, but this is why we have him here at 9. I still think he's going to do well. He could fall to 10 potentially in these rankings. We'll see. He's kind of teetering between this next kicker, and that next kicker is going to be Mr. Chase McLaughlin. That's tier 3. What am I doing? I got to get into tier 4. There we go. Chase McLaughlin, 10th ranked kicker on the week. And I do want to put this out there because I feel like some people are going to see I've got Chase here at 10. By the way, going up against the Rams in Los Angeles on Sunday Night Football, some people are going to look at this and say, "I thought you liked Chase the rest of the rest of the season." I did my rest of the season video, and he was my number 1 ranked kicker. Yeah, better days are going to be ahead. Do not panic. Keep him in there. If you want to play somebody this week, and if you want to roll the dice, you're more than welcome to. But I still love Chase the rest of the season. Keep in mind, being ranked 10th is not a death sentence in terms of fantasy football rankings. It does go on a week to week basis, but last week, we had 13 kickers with 10 points. So again, if you're not ranked towards the top, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a dud. But better matchups are ahead, but the Rams are allowing the 13th fewest points on the season. And yes, the Rams, that's even with the Rams allowing 15 points last week to the kicking position. So better days are ahead for Chase McLaughlin, better matchups are ahead, I should say. So he is 10th for now. In the coming weeks, he's going to be much higher. Do not panic. Our 11th ranked kicker is going to be Mr. Jake Elliott of the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are going up against the Cowboys, and while they are allowing the 12th most points, they've also allowed 9 or more points in 4 out of their last 5 games. So that's something that we like to see. We always talk about momentum on these shows. Elliott has had at least 8 points in 2 out of his last 3 games as well, and I expect him to make that 3 out of the last 4 after this weekend. I will say this, because again, I always talk about this. There could be some change in the rankings between now and then. Elliott could fall a little bit. If there's a kicker that I like a little bit more, he could fall just outside my top 12. Again, like I said, not a death sentence. So right now he is 11th on the week. The only reason why I keep repeating that is because I always get the comments, which you guys are more than welcome to leave. If I have somebody at 12 or something, they're going to be like, "Oh, should I cut him?" That's not always the case. If you want to ride a hot hand for a ceiling, you're more than welcome to do so. But again, you can still ride with a player even though he's at the back end of my top 12. It's not the end of the world. Let's finish this tier 4 before I start coughing again. And tier 4, the last kicker, the 12th ranked kicker, is going to be Matt Prater, whom I feel like hasn't been mentioned in. As I had mentioned earlier, the Texans are going up against the Buffalo Bills on Thursday Night Football. So here's kind of the thing here with Prater. So I expect Prater to put up good numbers. He's put up decent numbers in the past. He's had a bad week here or there, but to me, this one's more about the opponent. If you guys have watched this show, you have noticed that I have ran from matchups when it comes to the Houston Texans. The Texans were a killer to fantasy kickers, but as of late, though, in the last 2 weeks, the Texans have allowed a combined 23 points to kickers. That 23 points in the last 2 weeks accounts for 45% of the points that they have allowed to kickers all season long. So we are seeing a crack in the, so to speak, armor. So I'm a big fan of Prater this week. I mentioned Blackjack riding the hot hand, so I'm doing that with Prater in this matchup. The Texans are starting to allow points, so let's get in there and let's give a guy like Prater a top 12 start here. So those are my top 12 kickers in the week. Those are my 3 streamers rostered in 35%. Or less of sleeper leagues. That's just for week 12, of course. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. I will get to them while I'm through my coughing fits. But guys, appreciate you guys hanging with me here. Until next time, stay thirsty, be kind to one another. We'll catch you on the flip side, and cheers.